So, I get it. My patients come in, and we start talking a lot now in our practice about metabolic work, autonomic flexibility, things people do to change their life. And I'm noticing this with my clients initially and people that are out there. They'll go get blood work, they'll see their markers off. They'll say, or if it's almost like a medical model. Now I'm going to take the supplements to balance my metabolism back out and go back to what I was doing before. They're going to do the least amount of change, but they think that by balancing out their blood work, that's going to make them healthy.
Right.
Now, as a blood work person who has a supplement company who actually does that as a business, is that the answer?
No.
It's not the answer. Okay, so
and
let's talk about that.
It never was the answer, never will be the answer. Yeah, I mean, blood work is a photograph in time. You show up at 7 a.m. at the lab, they take your blood, and that's what it was that day. Is there valuable information there? Of course there is, just like there's valuable information in an MRI or an X-ray. So for example, if your car breaks down on the side of the road and you open the hood and you take a photograph of the engine and you send it to your mechanic, can the mechanic figure out what's wrong? Well, only if there's something obvious like the belt came off.
Right.
But if it's something that's functional, you're not going to see it structurally. So an MRI and an X-ray has its limitation. Without the structural abnormality, you didn't get your answer. And blood work is very similar in that it can identify patterns that can certainly point to a health problem, a disease process or a functional process. But, 2 sets of blood work is more valuable than 1. 4 sets of blood work, looking at patterns is, the more data points you have.
I guess the question is, are people thinking that the blood work being off or not where it's supposed to be, is that the problem?
Yeah, it's indicative. Usually,
or is that the problem, or is that the sign that there's a problem?
Yeah, it takes when I take your history and I have a working theory as to why you might be experiencing what you're experiencing. The blood work should support or deny that thought process. So it's not that the blood work gives me the answer. It's my experience and my education in working with patients and identifying things that need to change in someone's lifestyle. And then I use the blood work as a confirmation.
But from a patient or client perspective, they're going to get blood work. They're going to find out with the hope of finding where they're deficient or where they're off.
Okay.
And then they're going to do whatever, almost like I see this as like a medical model, right? Like you go, you find out you're low on hormones, and now they're going to manage your hormones. Like
right.
the problem wasn't
pharmaceutical medicine and there's natural medicine.
Well, my question is the problem the lowered hormones or the lowered markers, or the problem is what caused the lower hormones lower? So
answer is obvious.
Right.
Yeah.
So by manipulating your number, right? Like for example, when you see the commercial, like I lowered my cholesterol number, I took this drug and now I lowered. Great, my cholesterol. So why was your cholesterol high?
Or I took this supplement and I lowered my cholesterol.
And then the question is like, was the cholesterol high because of the lack of the supplement, or was there some much more complex thing going on in your body that created a lower number? And in medical perspective, you're just changing that number because that's the only number they're really looking at, right? It's a little different with your blood work because your metabolic markers are literally showing dysfunction, right? So it's a little bit different. But if they even did that and they took the supplements to try to get them back in there, they're not going to get the same result.
No.
Because there's underlying factors that made that blood work off.
There's value to medication. There's value to supplements. There's value to these types of linear interventions to have a single effect. My inflammation is high, let me take an anti-inflammatory. My cholesterol is high, let me take something to lower my cholesterol. That's a very linear view of the body, and we know the body is not a linear.
It's a very medical model.
Yeah, that's a very medical model. And the functional model says, what is it about these markers that are connected, right? So blood sugar and hemoglobin A1C versus inflammation versus nutrient deficiencies versus your history as it relates to how well you digest food versus a lot of things, and these things are interrelated. You can't separate the liver from the digestive system. You can't separate the digestive system from the brain. You can't separate the brain from your musculoskeletal system. This is one big system, and blood work is a way to tie a lot of these things together to give somebody the opportunity to make change in their life that can affect all of them at once. And then we can use natural medicines, for lack of a better term, or nutritional supplements to address. The easiest thing is to address a deficiency. There's different reasons to take a nutritional supplement. There's no pharmaceutical drug that will address a deficiency. There's no drug you can take to increase vitamin B12. Or
right. We don't have a lack of Tylenol. Correct. There's no Tylenol gland in our body, and then we need more of that medication. So those medications are meant to manipulate, where these supplements are actually the missing pieces that kind of help things out.
So blood work can help identify an insufficiency or a deficiency of a nutrient. And then, it's obvious. Let's use a supplement to raise that number. Of course, but why is it low to begin with? What if my diet is really good? Like there should be no shortage of vitamin B12 or folate or iron. My diet is adequate with all of those things. Why am I low? And that might be more of a functional problem. Perhaps there's a digestive system issue. It's not just what you eat. It's how you are what you eat, digest, and absorb, not necessarily just what you eat. If you're not digesting and absorbing, there's another issue going on.
Right. So in a way you're saying, so if I'm deficient in, say, folate, and I'm just throwing this out there, right? You're the teacher. So I'm deficient in folate. Deficiency in folate could be another system or lifestyle issue in my life that's contributing to the lack of folate, not the fact that I'm not eating enough. But by changing the lifestyle and then in the short term supplementing with that deficient, whatever that is, folate, for example, the two-pronged approach, one is addressing the underlying cause that could have created the deficiency, and at the same time you're supplementing with that supplement. So it's more of a lifestyle and maybe temporary situation with your supplement until you can get everything in order.
Yeah.
Is that kind of how what the approach is? It's not like now you're on a supplement for life. Like if you're going to a medical doctor and you test into some sickness or disease, there's a good chance you're going to be on that pharmaceutical for life, which wasn't supposed to be there. You weren't deficient in the pharmaceutical. Now that medication is going to cause other issues in your body, which will cause other issues. So what you're saying is that you're going to address the actual root cause, hopefully discover what that is, make that lifestyle modification, and then also introduce some supplements to help along.
What we always say is you don't get your health from a plastic bottle. You get your health from your lifestyle. We use what's in the plastic bottle to get you from where you are to where you need to be, especially as it relates to blood work or even some symptoms. We'll use nutritional supplements as a bridge, but there should be a plan for your lifestyle to take over. Now, you're talking to someone who's in the business of formulating nutritional supplements that make a difference in blood work. That's what I do.
Right.
That's my profession. But I have no desire to get my patients.
But your purpose, and I know you, and I've known you a long time. I think I've walked out with some supplements for the first time last week because I stole them from you. I wanted to try the fast fuel. But that being said, so why is it so much that we've defaulted to this? So what I'm trying to say is your philosophy is you want to help people. You have a supplement company to support the lifestyle change that they're making, but you're not selling your supplements. Really,
I don't need you to be on a subscription forever.
No, that's not your purpose. No. But it's required, and you've done the research to find out what works and moves the markers.
There are some. So let's just go to the supplement world for a second. So yes, there are basic nutrients that you could be deficient in or insufficient in that you can supplement and improve. And the obvious ones are vitamin B12, folate, zinc, magnesium, vitamin D. These are all things that are commonly insufficient in when we look at blood work, and improving it can also, and again, it shouldn't just improve the number on a piece of paper. It should improve the objective findings and the subjective findings that your patient came to you with, right? So there should be, when I recheck somebody's blood work, and I have that visit with them or that call with them, I say, before we go over numbers on a piece of paper, what's most important is, how are you doing? Mm-hmm. Let's go through what brought you here to begin with. Are you still experiencing poor sleep, poor digestion, gas, bloating, loose stool, constipation, chronic pain? Chronic pain is a huge one that people are experiencing. We want to know that they're objectively and subjectively doing better. Okay, great. Now let's look at the numbers. And let's talk about what we can remove, what we've been doing for the last 3 months. All right, we no longer need to take this. We no longer need to take that. We know your digestive system is working better. You're going to absorb more nutrients. We're going to obviously check that the next time we do your blood work. But our objective is to get you off of those things, but to keep you on the trajectory of the lifestyle change that gave you the benefit to begin with. You're not, if you go back to the way things were, you're going back to the way things were.
But before we leave that space, so why do you think people default to these medications and pills as the only answer? And why is that?
We want a quick solution, and sometimes there is a quick solution. When it comes, I said, if you're addressing deficiencies and insufficiencies, it's very obvious. But then there's supplements that are used more for medicinal purposes, right? There are nutritional supplements that can address acute inflammation or even chronic inflammation. Turmeric comes to mind, and omega-3s and things like that. So you can use nutritional supplements from a medicinal standpoint to address symptoms, signs and symptoms, but you also can use nutritional supplements for performance. Why do we take creatine monohydrate? It's been the most well-studied nutritional supplement in the world, and it can help brain performance, it can help muscle performance. And a lot of us are 55 years old and we're going to the gym and we want to perform well. So we'll take creatine, not because my blood work told me I need it.
So you've got the people who will do the blood work, take the supplements and think and only do that, right? Well, that's a class of people. Then you've got the people who are trying everything out there. Try this, try that. They're trying, I'm getting texts. Methylene blue keeps coming up on my search engine.
Right.
Should I try it, doc? These are people who have issues who are not doing the blood work, but they're willing to try lifestyle stuff,
right?
Without going the other way around. So you've got that mixed bag of people as well.
My patients are usually people with health problems that they're trying to solve first. And then I have a number of people who are looking to just perform well and move towards longevity. So I have those different populations. And the ones who have no health issues whatsoever, they're looking for performance and longevity. We use blood work. And again, you don't necessarily always feel that there's something wrong. So blood work can be very revealing when it comes to there being something headed in the wrong direction that you can get on top of before it becomes a symptomatic problem. But the objective there is to make the lifestyle change that somebody would need to make. So for example, if you lived your life in your 20s with a diet that was basically, you were unconscious about your diet. You weren't necessarily somebody who looks at their diet. Oh, I need to be healthy. No, you're in your 20s. You look great. You take your shirt off. You go to the beach. You're not embarrassed. You perform well in the gym. You're playing sports. You pick up basketball, whatever. Everything is working great. And you eat what you want because you work out a lot.
Right.
But then from 30 to 40, that same mindset starts to work against you.
Right.
And you start developing elevated triglycerides, insulin resistance, raised liver enzymes. But you still feel great and you look okay. But
and you think you're just aging.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be good to
and everyone else is going through the same thing.
Everyone.
Yes.
There are no exceptions.
Right. So you're looking left and right. There's really no radical change necessary because it's just you accept it as the normal process of aging.
Right.
Remember how we grew up? Wait till you get to 30.
Right.
30. I'm like, I wish I was 30, but like when you were 20, people would say that like that's when things start to break down. You wake up your first day, your 31st birthday, and my elbow hurt, and like and they're like, oh yeah, that happened to me too. I guess we're just getting old and breaking down, and that's normal.
And this is the difference, I think, between a functional approach to your health, with what some people call functional medicine. I don't like to use that term. And biohacking. Like I always look at the biohackers. They got an 8-pack, they're looking to get a 12-pack, they're 26 years old, and they're just hacking life to, I don't know, get a 12-pack. But the biohacking world is a way to, try to optimize things, and that's fine. But when things are starting to break down and you're starting to develop vicious cycles, again, insulin resistance is just a great way to kind of mark where people start to create these vicious cycles in their body where their liver, their immune system, their brain, their musculoskeletal system, their kidneys, all of that stuff, all that communication starts to break down. Then we're talking about, all right, what can we do with lifestyle, diet, sleep, your spiritual health, your emotional health, your relationships? Where are the interventions that you can, where's the low-hanging fruit that you can make a lifestyle change to dramatically improve how all of these different systems communicate with each other, and just use lab work as a monitor for these things improving.
But just to point out that I lived that lifestyle, and I lived the biohacking lifestyle, and I kind of got into it for a different reason. I wasn't the 20-year-old person who wanted the abs. I was 50 years old, and I couldn't work.
Right.
Couldn't sleep. It was affecting every aspect of my life. And I had generally gone and got regular blood work, and nobody gave me any answers to it. Regular medical blood work.
And you did all the biohacking.
And so that was the thing. So my blood work was fine. I was concerned. I was looking at, and I closed my practice after a while. I couldn't do it anymore. This is the hugest life thing. So in the meantime, I invested in going in an ice barrel every day, and I hate the cold, right? Investing in a sauna for my house, and making sourdough bread, and like my blood work, they said was fine. I wasn't sleeping. I was in pain, and I just figured there's something just wrong with me. So I did the biohacking, and then again, where most people may have gotten the blood work and then only done whatever it does to get the blood work right. I had the blood work, which was fine. I was just shooting in the dark and trying everything under the sun, like making it it's a job of mine to go into an ice barrel every morning just to get my inflammation down.
Yeah.
Only to find out my C-reactive protein was through the roof, and I was allergic to wheat, right? Because we had better blood work. So I went full circle and then showed up at your doorstep, and you sent me for a real comprehensive panel. It was the blood work. But at this point, like I'm almost looking at it like, wow, maybe now that I've pulled the wheat out and the gluten out and I've got my pain going away, now I'm going to find out if I'm a real biohacker. Am I really going to jump in that ice? Like my inflammation's going down. Yeah. I didn't go in every day this week.
Right.
That's a good sign.
Sure.
There's lots of things that I like. Maybe all of those things I was doing, as maybe helpful or not helpful as they were, and may have got me healthy, weren't fixing my initial problem.
Right.
So I'm the opposite of that. So I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get out of pain and deal with my symptoms. But if I would have only had that proper blood work at the beginning, right? But my answer is not now to take supplements.
Right.
My answer is to do what I was doing before, change my lifestyle.
Yeah.
Take some supplements during this interim period and recheck my blood work.
Yeah.
Finally getting to an answer through this process. But
and you still can benefit a great deal from doing a cold plunge, doing a sauna, doing the rucking and all the things that we like to talk about, but more from a performance standpoint than I want to get out of pain standpoint.
And my autonomic breath work that I do to regulate, which I've been doing for the entire 15 years, actually is probably the between that and the rest of the lifestyle work that we're doing, probably the thing that's made the biggest difference. And I backed into that too. I found that out of a necessity.
Right.
So all of these things that I help my clients with and we're working with people are that I've become an expert in.
So
because
I have the opposite story. I have the story of I did a lot of the things that you did. I let blood work really guide a lot of the changes that I made in my diet and lifestyle and saw the improvement there. And I've only recently started to do the breath work, the heart rate variability, the autonomic regulation in a meaningful way. There are other tips and tricks that I would try to improve my autonomic nervous system, but now I have a daily practice that allows me to measure my improvement. So
let's address some of these lifestyle things that people, besides, by all means, comprehensive blood work. If I would have had that blood work done 15 years ago, I would probably not be in as good shape as I am, first of all, because all that stuff got me in really good shape, but I probably would be out of pain, right? So I look back at the journey because it's allowed me to help so many people in this process. But to come back to the place where getting that blood work initially would have really helped. It would have given me a lot. It would have dealt with a lot. I would have had a lot less stress. But that being said, let's really break down these lifestyle things that we're talking about for people that get your blood work, get the comprehensive panel, look at those markers, talk to somebody on how to manage them. Okay, and that's not a wrong move. But then what are the things that really should be happening at that point in their lifestyle? Don't go back to your desk, get on the computer and go back to work. Don't go back to the same lifestyle. What are the things they can start to introduce into their life to start moving these markers themselves?
Yeah, so most people do have to go back to their desk and get back to work on their laptop, right? But, taking the time in your day to have practices that are sustainable. So even dietary changes. The old practice of going on a diet to restrict your calories and just use willpower to muscle your way through to fitting into a dress for a wedding you got to go to or whatever. And you got to push away from a table still hungry, and you have to sit there and suffer through cravings when you really want to have dessert. Those are using willpower to do that is very temporary, and it's 99% of the time completely reversed, and you gain all your weight back. The objective is to find the lifestyle that is sustainable so that you're not using willpower to suffer through anything.
It's not a great technique, by the way, from a neurological perspective either, because when you deny yourself of something, the moment you get exposed to it, you make up for lost time. It's just it happens all the time. So pushing away and avoidance or restricting is not the answer, as much as it is adding things that contribute to a positive feedback loop in your body.
So identifying what works. So when my patients start working with me, what I'll do initially is just give them a plan. Like here's what you need to do for the next 12 weeks. And the first 7 to 10 days, willpower is involved. But then after that, they're easily satiated. Lifestyle becomes very easy to modify. They get great results. We redo their blood work. Everything is stellar and beautiful. And then the conversation becomes, all right, well, you miss anything? Is there anything that we removed that you'd like to have back or that you're going to bring back? And there are some things that they'll say, you know what, I took this out. I don't need to ever bring it back. So I'm good. But these things that we removed, I'd like to bring back. And then the conversation becomes, you are now going to learn and will know better than I could what works for you. And this is where people have to discover what works best for them. Because you've given them the education, you gave them the lifestyle change, you gave them the success, all the improvements were experienced, and now they are going to start bringing some foods back. So I had this conversation with a colleague of ours that we both know very, very well, Lisa Marie, and she's been a patient of mine for 15 years. So she knows what works for her better than I do, and chronic inflammatory bowel disease is a very, very real thing, and autoimmunity, and the risks of having those types of disorders is a real problem, and she's had several flare-ups, in this 15 years. And one of the things we started doing was using a CGM, right, a continuous glucose monitor. And when she uses the CGM, I told her, I go, look, you have a great diet, great lifestyle, great fitness routine. No evidence, you haven't had evidence of insulin resistance in years. Liver enzymes, triglyceride, like all that, everything is dialed in. But these flares, when they occur, we don't know what's causing the flare. Like with you, we identified you have IgG, very elevated IgG antibodies to gliadin or gluten. That was very specific. But there could be other things, right? So when you use a CGM and you see that you eat a meal and your blood sugar goes up to 130, and then it takes like 30 minutes to come back down into the 90s, like that's awesome. That is great. But there might be some foods that you eat that are perfectly healthy and fine, but cause you to have an excursion that instead of 130, it goes up to 150, and it takes 2 hours to come down. That doesn't mean you're insulin resistant or you have a blood sugar insulin resistant or you have a blood sugar problem. But it could mean that particular food is very pro-inflammatory to you, and inflammation causes insulin resistance. It's not just your diet that causes insulin resistance. Inflammation can cause insulin resistance. So
we're able to identify particular foods that were throwing her into that reaction.
In one person, they could eat a sweet potato and everything is perfect. In another person, they eat a sweet potato and boom, it spikes up and it stays up and it has a long trajectory coming down. Perhaps there's something about that food that you should be avoiding, because if you have a white potato, that doesn't happen, and vice versa in somebody else. So while a continuous glucose monitor is not a direct measurement of inflammation, you could use it as a way to decide what foods agree with you better than others, and then developing a diet, based on that. Now, hers was a very complicated case. She inflammatory bowel disease. We brought her from massive amounts of anxiety and medication and almost an addiction to benzodiazepines because of the anxiety and all that, and we reversed it all and got her to a state that's unrecognizable to where she started. But there are some foods that she just shouldn't be eating. And I don't know how to tell her what those foods are, but she can identify that herself. Wow. A lot of people will use their own symptoms as a way to identify it. That's very difficult. Here, she can use her symptoms and then correlate that with CGM findings. She uses Levels, that software, that process of continuous glucose monitor. Again, not because she's pre-diabetic, but this has helped her identify foods.
Well, that's fascinating. So you have her dialed in, first of all. So that's something you do with something off the bat, but she's dialed in, and now you're looking for those individual types of foods she's not reacting to efficiently, causing issues in her body. So there's lifestyle. Obviously, there's so much we can do with our diet as far as timing of food and fasting and that sort of thing and regulating. So let's move on to other lifestyle things that we could be addressing, right? We're not just taking supplements and pills to balance our blood work, but now we're addressing these lifestyle issues. Let's get right into the autonomic nervous system, which runs our digestive system. It's kind of my game, but let's talk about that from this perspective.
Yeah, so whenever we deal with patients, we're not only addressing their diet, we're addressing all of the things that influence their health. So their sleep, their fitness, their relationships, their stress management, right? So we kind of have to dial all of those things in.
Which could be the contributing to the root cause of the blood work markers being off.
Right.
That's why I just want to keep reinforcing the fact
Without a doubt.
it's lifestyle causing the blood work. So therefore, just by taking a supplement to balance out the blood
Let me give you an
work.
example. Let me give you an example. So you have somebody whose diet is dialed in, their fitness routine is dialed in, everything is great, and they are clearly not sleeping well. And they're not sleeping well because they're using maybe an Oura ring or something to identify that they're lacking in deep sleep, or they're waking up multiple times a night. Maybe they have sleep apnea or snoring. This is going to result in, we know that one poor night of sleep can raise your baseline cortisol for the day. Even though your cortisol rhythm is appropriate, the baseline quantity of cortisol you're producing could be 40% higher the day after a crappy night's sleep.
For the whole day.
For the whole day.
Which is not going to throw off.
And it's going to throw off insulin resistance. It's
Energy.
It's going to throw off a lot of things. So that's where,
because cortisol is looking to get
issue.
more sugar for energy for the body, and it's almost like going into his hyperdrive, throwing you out of whack just from a poor night's sleep.
Yeah.
Wow.
So and then there's fitness-related things. There's no shortage in my gym of middle-aged women. I say women just because that's my observation. They're I applaud them because they're, let's say, between 45 and 65 years of age. They're at the gym 5 days a week, doing 5 days a week of HIIT classes, and they look fantastic. And maybe they had some work done, but they still look great. And that 55-year-old looks like she did when she was 35. And you're like, oh my God, look, she works out 5 days a week, HIIT classes 5 days a week. And then you talk to her, and she's grossly inflamed, terrible sleep, no libido, hormonal issues. She looks great.
Right.
And perhaps that issue is an excessive amount of high-intensity interval training that is resulting in chronic inflammation and then insulin resistance, hormone dysregulation, all of the things associated with that.
What about the men at the gym? You got the men going to the gym. Their blood work seems a little bit off. Maybe they're putting them on hormone replacement therapy, and they're just maybe a little bit too much. I noticed as well. And they're going to the gym. They're still lifting those weights, but they're not changing their diet. They're really not doing any cardio. It's just a matter of get that look, and they feel like, well, my doctor's monitoring my hormone levels and making sure that that's not going in a negative direction, so I must be healthy.
Right.
So speak to that.
Yeah, so hormone replacement therapy, I mean, a big problem with that is...
And you're moving a number there. So remember, my point is the hormone is low because of a root cause. If you don't address the root cause, the primary cause of the hormone being low, and you just start giving yourself exogenous hormones, you're still not dealing with the root cause. Right. And the blood work they're monitoring is to see whether or not the excess exogenous hormone is impacting your health negatively, if they have to dial it or change it, or maybe you're getting it's aromatizing into estrogen, right? So they're monitoring that element, but they're not looking at you in a comprehensive way.
Yeah, because the number one cause of low testosterone in the United States is insulin resistance, and there are different ways to have insulin resistance. Crappy sleep is one, or sleep apnea and things of that nature. Insulin resistance can be caused by a shitty diet. Insulin resistance can be caused by excessive inflammation. That excessive inflammation could be due to a chronic immunological problem like IgG antibodies to gluten that you keep feeding yourself, but it also could be a herpetiform virus that keeps reactivating, like Epstein-Barr virus or herpes simplex 1 and 2. It could be Lyme disease, right? So different things that would activate your immune system or result in inflammation is going to cause insulin resistance, and that's going to prevent you from producing testosterone.
These are guys that I know that have not changed their diet since the 80s. Only thing they've done now, they've had these symptoms or these low T-scores and whatever other symptoms they're on, and they go to their hormone replacement doctor, who becomes their primary care physician.
Right.
And he checks my blood work 2 times a year, and I think I'm going in the right direction.
They want to make sure you don't have a stroke because you're taking so much testosterone that you're overproducing red blood cells. They want to make sure that you're not, and I don't know that they're always making sure that you're not aromatizing into estrogen, because I see so many sets of labs of people who are taking testosterone replacement therapy and their estrogen is through the roof.
Right.
And that's not a good thing.
But the philosophy is my numbers are down, and I'm going to take this supplement hormone
without
into my
addressing
body
anything else.
to bring the number back up. And then there's the ones that are going to the gym I'm talking about. What about the people who testosterone are low, who aren't going to the gym, and they get put on testosterone replacement therapy? They literally are going back to their computer thinking they're making positive change in their life. And that's a bigger issue.
There could be positive change. So, for example, if your testosterone, you're a grown man, maybe in your early 50s, late 40s, your testosterone's in the 300s, you have the symptoms associated with that, and you start with testosterone replacement therapy, one of a couple of things is going to happen. Either it's not going to make a difference in how you feel, or it's going to be like night and day. And thank God you found this testosterone replacement therapy. And if the doctor that gave you the replacement therapy brought you from 300 to 800, and we don't need to go to super physiological levels as if we're entering a bodybuilding contest, right? That's a whole different ballgame. I don't even want to speak to that population because
it's not health driven.
It's not health driven. If we're talking about health, testosterone is a hormone that's not just about going to the gym and building muscle. Testosterone is a hormone that contributes to libido, but more in women, I think, than in men. But it really is a brain protective hormone, and it allows for clear thinking and reducing brain fog. And testosterone is pretty powerful as a brain type of a hormone. So you could benefit a great deal even though you're not going to the gym. If you're not going to the gym, it just means you're lacking in a nutrient your body needs, vitamin E. Exercise.
Right.
So that's never a good idea to not exercise. But it doesn't preclude you from, if you don't exercise, does that mean you're not going to benefit at all from testosterone replacement therapy? No, of course you can.
Okay.
Especially if you get to levels that are more appropriate to somebody, let's just say a decade behind you. If you're not working out and you're taking your testosterone from 300 to 1500 or 2000 and your estradiol is through the roof, well, now you're going to have some problems.
Yeah. So all right. So not to get we're not going to go too deep down the hormone replacement. I think that could be a whole episode in why someone might do that. I think we should talk about it someday. But we are talking about seeing a change in blood work. What are some of the things in lifestyle? So we're also looking at, so what are the other lifestyle pillars, right? Like the action shouldn't be just take the supplement, right? Mm-hmm. What are some of the other action pillars that could have contributed to the to the change in the metabolic numbers, the blood work, and what are the things that we could be doing to change them from a lifestyle perspective? What are some of the things that you recommend? And obviously, not to do them all at once, but how do we start to introduce these lifestyle changes for people so they get the maximum benefit from there?
So dialing in your daily routine, right? So you have to dial in the exercise that you get. You have to dial in the food that you're eating with long-term sustainable dietary. I don't think it's possible to not have dietary restrictions. Virtually anything that's ever been called food on planet Earth is available to us at arm's length, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, super cheap, cheaper than it's ever been. But no humans that ever lived on this planet could have that abundance of choices. So the overabundance that we have dictates that we need to have some level of restriction, whether it be caloric restriction or certain foods at certain times of the year. Whatever that story is, you do have to dial in your diet. You have to have a dietary philosophy. Whether you're paleo or keto or, a healthy version of each of these diets exist, and a very unhealthy version of each of these diets exist.
Right.
So dialing in your diet, and again, the focus of your diet doesn't have to be the same 12 months out of the year, every year for the rest of your life. You could be focused on a paleo-style diet that's very, that includes a lot of plants, vegetables and fruit, and that's a great thing to do from, let's say, June through September. But then in the winter months, you might be more keto carnivore, right? Because that's just more of a natural thing to do. Bananas don't grow in February in New Hampshire. And eating fruits that typically grow only 3 months out of the year, all year round, it's probably not a great idea. But dialing, having a dietary philosophy for what interests you, for where you live, for what season it is just a good, healthy practice. Getting your blood work done on a regular basis to identify any challenges you might be having with getting micronutrients or things that should be in your diet but you're not absorbing for some reason.
And that's to help you guide what you're eating, because if you're starting to see that you're eating certain foods that are raising numbers or decreasing numbers, you're going to avoid them, and you start to dial in how your body's going to respond and everybody's different.
Right.
But your blood work's going to tell you exactly.
Part of a dashboard. Right?
Yeah, it's going to give you something to read, which is important.
It's kind of getting feedback to say, all right, I'm going to dial this in, I'm going to dial that in, I'm going to use this supplement for a couple of months. So I like to do blood work actually repeatedly.
From an autonomic perspective, not really having the understanding of the markers like you do, understanding digestion, understanding autonomic function. If someone was to get their blood work and start to take supplements and start to change their lifestyle, digestive system is run by the autonomic nervous system. You sleep, your autonomic nervous system. So all regulating the autonomic nervous system from a digestive perspective, from a sleep perspective, from a stress perspective, from the way you're approaching life perspective, I think is so foundational to this. Because if I am getting blood work and I'm going to take supplements and I'm going back to work and I'm eating while I'm on the computer and I'm just going back to not looking at how I'm operating, I run a risk of those supplements not working the way they should or at all, right? And because I'm not addressing those underlying issues.
So one of the things since working with you, and I have a daily twice a day 10-minute practice of doing my breath work and getting the feedback from my heart rate variability using the heart math system.
We're training your nervous system what we call autonomic flexibility.
Yeah.
So many people have very efficiently figured out how to get stressed out through driving themselves in success and living their life. We are really good at being on high alert, being on all the time. But unfortunately, as time, just like insulin resistance builds in your body, that anxiety and stress and those hormones become very efficient in your body. So we're building in a practice of coherence, which is the opposite of that,
right?
Which is DHEA, oxytocin. Your digestive tone is slowing down, and your body's becoming familiar with something and just being just as efficient as this. So we're not asking them to walk away from the hammer that's getting them their success and has, but we are offering them the flexibility to turn that off, because the ability to turn things on and off is really the answer to this.
So you've guided me to be able to do that from an autonomic perspective in a way that allows me within just a couple of minutes of practice to really change my physiology. And I see it on the screen. I see it with my coherence and my heart rate variability. And it's undeniable that I'm going from a state of sympathetic tone or fight or flight to a state of growth, healing, and repair, or resting and digesting, the parasympathetic tone. So I started doing something interesting. It's easy for me to fall asleep. So I was doing this practice after dinner, maybe an hour after dinner before I go to bed, and I was doing that practice and benefited from it. But then I tried something else. I started to do it before dinner. So I do a 10-minute session before dinner instead of after dinner. And it's pretty dramatic because my digestive system is very sensitive. And I know there are certain foods that give me more gas and bloating than I would want, typically in the vegetable family, very healthy vegetables that I don't want to eliminate from my diet. And doing that 10-minute routine has made a pretty tremendous difference. And this is something that I had to identify in myself. So it's kind of like finding the right foods for you, finding the right routine for you. I also never work out unless I'm fasted, just because I just feel so much better exercising in a fasted state. There are people who feel so much better exercising after they've already had a good breakfast. there's not one thing over the other. It's what do you track about yourself? So paying attention to how life practices make you feel is really important. So for me, I exercise in the morning in a fasted state, but I don't go to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm not one of those guys.
Right. You just don't eat till 1. You could break your fast at 10 in the afternoon.
Yeah. My favorite time to work out. My favorite time to work out is between 9 and 11.
I'm the same way. I've always been that way. I mean, because of my schedule, I only had time when I used to be in practice. I would be, at the gym at 5:30. But I felt, and I didn't eat, beforehand. I felt faster. Like I wasn't carrying as much weight with me. I had more energy. Yeah. That's interesting. So what about I was just watching, I forget who I was watching this week, how they were saying immediately after they eat, they go for a walk. Yeah. Does that impact digestion as well?
Yeah. I actually think I wouldn't go for a run and I wouldn't go for a heavy workout, but definitely a zone 1. So that feeling that a lot of people get after a meal, like you had a nice meal, you're full, you're satiated, you didn't eat too much, you feel great. But for some reason, 10 minutes later, you're looking for something. You open the refrigerator, you're looking for something sweet. There's always room for dessert, kind of a thing. That is a sign of insulin resistance to a degree. And one thing we know is that cravings like that come in waves, right? Kind of like being on the beach. A wave hits you, it's pretty strong, it's going to knock you down. But then the wave recedes and the water's calm again. Well, cravings like that hit you in waves. And it usually happens 10, 15, 20 minutes after a meal. And if you wait it out, it does go away. So it's a great thing to do after a meal to take your dog for a walk. And just let that wave pass while you're out taking the dog for a walk, and you come back, you have your blood circulating, your heart rate is up a little bit, and the need to eat something goes away. It's a great practice. It works great for me.
I wonder why that happens. I mean, I'll eat a good meal, and then I'll get that craving. I wonder if my body just wants the insulin spike. Does it want more sugar?
No. It got the insulin spike from your meal. You probably overproduced insulin a little bit, and your glucose actually dropped.
Dips.
So you had that drop in blood sugar, and now you want to lift it up again.
Yes.
Right. So there's a craving. This is the mechanism for you're not hungry. Everything is fine. You're walking through the airport or a shopping mall, and you smell that pretzel shop or that Cinnabon. You get that smell. In New York, you walk by a pizzeria, and it's like, ooh. So now you have this sense that goes right to your brain, this olfactory, this smell. And usually when you smell food like that, your brain thinks, all right, he's going to eat. So I'm going to pre-release some insulin to deal with it. So now, let's say your glucose goes from, 85 to 75, and because you pre-released a little bit of insulin because the smell or the sight, the Super Bowl commercial of the Domino's pizza and the cheese stretching makes your brain think you're about to feed it, and the brain pre-releases.
It's a real deal. I mean,
it's called a cephalic insulin response. Yeah. So now your glucose drops, and you're like, now I'm hungry. Yeah. I want to eat something because I smelled it.
So while we're on this topic, and it's a little off topic, but we'll keep talking about it because I think it's interesting. People can relate to this, right? So I don't eat sugar much. I really avoid it. But if for some reason I'm at a party midday and there's nothing available, and at the time I would eat pizza. Now I know I can't eat gluten, but whatever it's going to be, some sugary or dessert, maybe ice cream. For the rest of the day, I'm craving more and more and more. Until I go to until midnight. I'll go through my round of snacks, and then I'll start my second round. I never had the sugar, and then in the morning I wake up, if I don't have another carbohydrate or sugar, I won't even think about it. But what is that phenomenon all about? I mean, I get it; it's pretty strong. It's almost like an addiction. It's sugar. It's like I need more sugar. Obviously not hungry. Yeah. I want sugar. I don't even want food. I want sugar.
Right. So there are some addictive qualities to certain sugars and carbohydrates, specifically fructose. So if you and I were hiking in Sedona, and we got lost and we're gone for 12 hours, and we had no water and we're about to die, and then we come down from the hike and we happen onto a big. We're so thirsty, like we're just itching. Like if we don't get some water soon, we're just gonna die. And then you see like a 5-gallon jug of water, and you start, I'm gonna drink it all. And you start guzzling the water. Well, at some point, you fill up, you restore, you're hydrated. You're not gonna drink another 4 gallons, right? You might get through a half a gallon, and then all right, I'm all good. There's no reason. There's no nutritional reason to just keep on drinking. Same thing holds true if, in the same story, we came across people having a barbecue and they have like a whole bunch of ribeye steak, some tomahawk steaks. And you're like, look at those steaks. I'm going to eat them all. But then you have one and you barely can finish it. I mean, you get all the protein and fat into your grill and you're satiated. It's like the water. You've restored what was missing. You were in need of a meal, not a snack. You were in need of a meal. So when it comes to water, protein, and fat, you get satiated. But if I pull the plate away from the ribeye steak and I drop a chocolate cake in front of you, there's always room for dessert. And why is that? You're full. There's no reason to add the chocolate cake. But because sugar is different, or fructose in particular is different, goes to a different part of your brain. It goes to a part of your brain that are your addictive centers, same area of the brain that nicotine goes to, that cocaine goes to, that caffeine goes to, fructose goes to, or sugar. And it results in that addictive behavior. So we always, I like the term, I forget who said it, a meal is a nutritional event, a snack is an emotional event, right?
Wow.
So now let's bring this to another story. So the other story is you're hanging out with your buddy, your buddy's an alcoholic, you're about to start watching football on a Sunday afternoon. He cracks his first beer at noon, you crack your first Poland Spring at noon, and you start watching the football games, and the football games are going to go to 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
That guy is going to crack a beer incessantly the whole time until he passes out. You're going to crack a Poland Spring when you're thirsty. You can't sit there and just drink Poland Spring after Poland Spring after, water after water after water. Beer is like 96% water, but that 4% alcohol is the addictive. So that's the kind of
sugar.
Sugar. So the addiction is to is to that. Water doesn't have that. So that's why sugar is so addictive. There are addictive qualities to it. Breaking that addiction requires you to become not only become insulin sensitive and normalize your metabolic health, but there's a certain behavior change that has to occur. Like you have to start to really abstain for a period of time. Some people have to abstain forever, just like some people have to abstain from alcohol forever,
right?
Because if they have just a little bit, it triggers it.
I'm very sensitive to sugar. I can definitely relate to that, and I'm glad we talked about that, and we didn't really digress because the reality is, many of the people that we work with, we are changing when they eat, what they eat, pulling some sugars out, carbohydrates, and they're going to have that experience, and it's almost. If you don't know that's what it is, you're just going to say, I'm just hungry all the time. I can't get, it's on your mind. You said it is like an addiction, right? So it's on your mind. You start to obsess over it, and it becomes harder. But knowing on the other end of that, by going through a short process of pulling those sugars out of your body, right? And eating food. I mean, you're eating meat. I mean, we're not starving. We're eating meat and butter and protein and fat and satiating. You're not starving. Over time, you don't look for the sugar. It's funny how I don't until it finds its way into my diet on that birthday party day, and then I'm off to the races.
Right.
But I want people to realize that we're talking about getting blood work, not just taking supplements, but changing a lifestyle, and that might look like maybe not eating certain foods or eating at certain times of the day. There is some painful thoughts you might have around that, and I'm here to tell you that you adapt to it pretty quickly.
Yep.
And the benefit to it of changing that lifestyle by far. You start to live this lifestyle, and it's. I just want to be able to realize that it's doable. It's not. It doesn't need a ton of willpower, but I think educating yourself, understanding what's going on in the body, being aware that it's a normal thing to have cravings, especially at the beginning, is important for people's success.
Yeah. Look, when I was 19 years old and I was bartending in college, and I'd get out of the bar at 3 o'clock in the morning and go to the diner and have 5,000 calories of a double cheeseburger deluxe with fries and gravy and mozzarella cheese, and then the next day go to the beach, take your shirt off, and you still look good.
There's one thing I can. No matter how drunk I ever am, I can say two things: Taylor ham and cheese on a hard roll, and cheeseburger deluxe. Cheeseburger deluxe means you're getting the fries too,
That's right.
And I could that'll roll off my tongue, and then it comes. And I ate all that fat and carbs, and I would go home, and I would feel like my belly, like if I'm on my side, my belly button would actually be hitting the mattress, and then like I feel like that was like I would sleep.
Now the fact that I haven't done that in 20 years plus.
Taylor ham, by the way, is what do they call it? Pork roll around everywhere else. It's the Jersey thing.
But the fact that I haven't done that in 30 years. I have no desire to do that.
No, gosh, no.
it would be the hangover I would have would last 3 days.
Oh, that indigestion, the whole thing.
Yeah, no. It's like that'll never happen. Did I enjoy it when I was that age? Yeah, but, those days are over. I don't need willpower to not do that. I don't do that because feeling great is a far better reward than whatever is going on during that cheeseburger deluxe experience. So it does take time. You can break a lot of those physical addictions in 7 to 10 days.
Not to mention a cheeseburger at a diner is nothing like the grass-fed, grass-finished burgers that I make at home today.
Right.
It doesn't even taste the same.
No, because it's the bun, it's the fried potatoes,
no flavor.
It's the ketchup and
no, mine's better now. No, I don't. There's no flavor. There's no flavor in the burger at the diner.
That's why you flavor it with all the other stuff, right?
Onions.
Right. So what I usually tell people is, look, once in that first 12 weeks. It's almost like you solved all the problems in the world. But the truth is, you really have to go a whole year. You got to experience holidays. You have to experience birthdays and anniversaries and family events. And it really does take a year to go through the full evolution, while the metabolic changes can happen really fast. And the blood work changes in like 12 weeks and all of that. The behavior change, the change between your ears, that takes about a year to the point where you're like, I'm not going back. There's no way I'm going back.
Yeah, and that's what we help people do every day. That's what I do is I get on calls with people and I walk them through a process of changing their autonomic function. I help coach the metabolic changes, the dietary changes, and by working with people can't. It's impossible to do it all. We want to give it all at once.
Yep.
And I think it's to be tactful in working with people and understanding the struggles that they go through and being a human being and understanding that there's foods that they love and they're part of their culture and how could they? It's like Italians are always like, I'm Italian, I have to eat pasta.
Yeah.
Well, my Chinese friends say I have to eat rice.
Right.
Or my Irish friends say I have to eat pasta and drink beer. You don't. Every culture has a carb love. And that sort of thing. And if you're in a situation that it's just, and sometimes it's temporary. You said yourself.
And then you manage it. Like Thanksgiving is a day. It's one day. Christmas Day is one day. It's not, Thanksgiving is not Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Thanksgiving's Thursday. So do what you do, and then dial it back in.
I look at it this way: like I keep it pretty strict, but when I go to a party where I'm not going to eat like I normally do, I expect that.
Yeah.
And initially I didn't want people to put people off. I'd kind of eat what's there. I'm staying away from gluten because I'm allergic to it. But other than that, I'll eat everything else. And they look at me like, how could you eat? Like I'm eating like them in a way, right? Yeah. And they're like looking at me like, how come you were eating like me?
I thought you were the health guy.
This is once every 6 weeks,
right.
And I'm having a great time.
Right.
Imagine I ate like that every day.
Oh, no.
Like they do.
Forget it.
I would not be having a great time.
No, I'd be 325 pounds.
Yeah, so you can have fun with it. Like you can. It's not like we are not going back to restriction, renunciation. We're not going into hey, I'm 54 years old.
Right.
I'm midlife. I'm not looking to make life harder. I'm looking to enjoy myself.
That's right.
How can I do it in a way where? But I don't. Every day is not a party.
Yeah, but I also discovered new foods that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
I mean, if my choice, I'm addicted to these videos on YouTube of these outdoor Greek barbecues where they're roasting whole lamb and you making all kinds of organ meat.
I got a friend Pete. That's the videos he does. He's a lifestyle guy, Greek guy.
Yeah.
And every video is him and they're coming in with wine and they're cutting up like it's all videos and they're dancing around and they're making a lamb and then they're eating it and I'm like, I want to go to Pete's house.
Yeah, yeah. So, anyway, this is a great episode because really people need to understand there's lifestyle choices that they make that are not necessarily just related to food, that impact their physiology and their metabolic health, that can be measured with blood work, that you do have to pay attention to your autonomic nervous system, you have to pay attention to your sleep and your fitness, as well as your diet, and also recognize that you have to find out what works for you once it's dialed in.
And don't go get a comprehensive panel and then go take the supplements and think that's the only thing you're going to change. Making those lifestyle changes are super important, but at the same time, they're not as hard as you might think.
That's right.
There's people like us who help bring you through that process, and on the other end, you're right where you wanted to be in the first place. So I think that not looking at this blood work and supplementation in that medical model, but looking at it as a nice little lever,
a bridge
and a map into the insight, and to start to implement these things that are going to give you energy, they're going to give you better night's sleep, better focus and clarity, just feeling good about yourself, and that's what we want to help people do.
Right on.
All right, great episode. See you next time.